I'm not sure everyone else wants to hear it in the recording. Well, hi everybody. Tonight is Thursday, February 25th, 2016, and we're very, very excited to welcome you to the kickoff of our Open ABE MOOC. We've changed the name so many times, I don't even really know what we call it, but basically it's our MOOC to prepare instructional modules for adult basic education. And I'm Jennifer Madrill. I'm sitting here in Chicago, Illinois, and maybe we could go around and everybody could say hello. We have a few of the designers and subject matter experts from the project. So JR, you want to kick us off?
Hi, I'm JR Dingwall. I'm an instructional designer, educational developer here in Edmonton, Alberta, and it's only about 2 degrees Celsius up here today, so we're not doing so bad for the end of February.
Go ahead, Jen.
Good evening. I'm John Bakke, assistant professor at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yay. And then we've got Kaya, but I think Kaya's working on her mic. I'm not sure. Can you hear us, Kaya? She's waving at us anyway. She can hear us, but we can't hear her. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. This is kind of an awkward situation. Normally when we have our meetings for Designers for Learning, we use Zoom. And maybe we'll move to that because it looks like we have about 32 viewers and we have 50 seats in Zoom. So maybe next time, if we keep these meetings to that constraint of 50 people, maybe we'll move it over to Zoom, which is I feel much more comfortable in. We can all use the same text chat and what have you. But if you do have questions, if you're on Twitter, if you use the hashtag OpenABE, JR, would you mind doing the honors tonight and kind of keep an eye on that?
I've got it on the side.
Excellent, thank you so much. And then we also have been, although there hasn't been a lot of activity, we have been trying to keep track of what's happening in our help forums as well as our Ask the Subject Matter Expert, which is in our Canvas course shell. So between those two, we'll try to see if we get any new activity during the session tonight. But I do have a few canned remarks and some things that I wanted to do as long as we don't have any questions coming in. And so first and foremost, I really want to thank everybody for joining us. This has really been a really incredible experience for all of us involved, and I can't believe it's kicked off and is actually happening. But just to give you a little bit of background, we started the design of this course back in August of last year, 2015. And we have a team of, I don't even know where we ended up, maybe 24 or so between designers, subject matter experts, and now facilitators, all working as volunteers. So there's no money exchanging hands. We're all just doing this as a labor of love and having a great time doing it. And so I'll make sure when I post the recording in Canvas that I have show notes, and it will have the links to our team page to give everybody a sense of who it was that worked on the project, and you'll have a chance to see everybody's shining faces. And then I also wanted to mention a couple other things regarding registration and enrollment. It's been great this week. I think about 150 people have joined since we started on Monday. And so we do want to cap the registration to next week because it is a project-based course and we don't want to have too many folks joining us too late in the game. And so March 4th, the enrollment will officially close. So if you are talking to some of your colleagues or students or friends and you want to join, kind of keep that date in mind that March 4th will be the last day, and then I don't have any control at that point to let anybody else in. And then now I'm going to stop talking and pass things over to both to JR and to John to talk a little bit about, they were both designers of the first 2 modules in the course. So John worked on Module 1 and JR worked on Module 2. And so if, John, maybe if you could kick us off and kind of give us what your design ideas were. How did you come about the material you presented and the activities and the things that people are going to be working on?
In Module 1, we wanted to really kick this off with you being able to really understand the environment, the context, and more importantly, who the learners are that you're designing towards. So we use in Module 1, you're going to participate in what we call empathic design, where you are going to actually begin to put yourself in the shoes of your learners. And working with the subject matter experts very closely, we came up with these personas, and there's 6 personas that represent adults who are looking to get their high school equivalency. And so you're going to experience these people, and we're going to bring you through a lot of different activities so that you can really start to get a feel for who the learners are going to be, because we feel that it's really important in instructional design to understand who our learners are beyond just demographics. We really want to understand what they want to accomplish, what their hopes, dreams, and fears are coming into any type of instructional design setting. So we're going to lead you through that. In addition, we're going to kind of get you to start thinking about what are the gaps here, and what will be the gaps for your learners, and really trying to bring in the context. And this is going to sort of set the stage as you move forward in the other modules, because what you take from Module 1 in really understanding the learning environment, the performance environment, who your learners are, that's going to set the stage as you move into the other modules, as you begin to really understand and start choosing what topic you will want to design with, and then getting to your design document, your prototype, and then your final lesson.
Yeah, and then the other designer that worked with you was Eric. He worked on the pieces that were associated with the learning context and the performance context. And unfortunately, he got a new job and wasn't able to join us on the facilitation part. So we really thank him for that. And so, John, I know also you might want to mention you're conducting research. Do you want to talk a little bit about that as far as what your research interest is? Folks may have seen that in the module 0, where you talk about the study that you're running during this course.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a research study following you designers as you move along through all of the modules, getting to your final product. And what I'm interested in is seeing how you take your understanding of the learners and use that throughout the entire project as you design. So as you move from modules, you're going to receive prompts, and you're going to receive reflections and discussion questions on, where you are in your design, and saying, how are you thinking about your learners right now? How are your instructional strategies and your delivery strategies being impacted by your learners? Because really what we want you to start thinking about is that every design decision you make is made in light of how it'll impact your learners. So you always keep your learners right up there in front. You're always walking in their shoes the whole time, and that's really where my interests in research are. So I'm very excited to be able to follow you along as you proceed.
And maybe we could make a pitch to those that have joined our course that are adult educators. I've been so thrilled to read through the introductions that are in Module 0 and see how many working professionals who do this for a living, which is not, unfortunately, all of us in this group are unfortunately not the subject matter experts necessarily on adult education, but more so maybe on the instructional design side. And so I know, John, we've talked about this, as people are doing their discussions in Module 1, it would be great if the adult educators could give us some real-world contextual information about things. I know, for example, a question came up about the TABE testing and how that comes into play. I think TABE, it's what is it, Test of Adult Basic Education. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, and I'm sure people are squirming right now that I somehow have messed up that acronym. But basically, that's the test when a new learner comes into an adult education program. There's some type of leveling test that will assess where they fit in either math or English or whatever the subject may be. And then from there, those are the materials that they would work on from that level on up. And that was one example of a question that came up within the discussion in Module 1. And it would be great, as I said, if someone who's very familiar with this field could come in and say, well, in the real world, this is what we see and this is how it tends to work. So we do invite you to do that as well. So JR, do you want to take us through Module 2? JR's squirming right now because we all kind of cringe. Module 2 is when we start getting into these dreaded college and career readiness standards. So I'll try to bail you out if you need some help, JR, but go for it. Why don't you try?
So this is about CCRS from your local Canadian.
From the Canadian designer who is back.
So I'm going to turn my attention away from the Twitter feed momentarily, so I'm not ignoring you. But Module 2 is now where we start to make some of those first design decisions, and that's how we lay this whole thing out. So we talk about things like the CCRS, the College and Career Readiness Standards, that are kind of a roadmap for the different levels that your selected learner might be at, and the content area that they're going to be engaged in, or that you're building a lesson for. We talk about some of those foundational things we love in instructional design, such as learning objectives, and how to craft those. And those of you that are experienced, you're going to be able to fly through that section. And those of you that maybe haven't experienced writing learning objectives, there are some support materials that my colleague who developed the module with me created as well. We talk a little bit about how the learning objectives influence assessment and what assessments you might select for your lesson. And then what's built into that first section of Module 2 then is an example. So you get to actually see, okay, here's an example from English Language Arts that we used where there are some learning materials and what that looks like in terms of a lesson plan and maybe what we might be expecting towards the final project. The design template is also introduced in that section. And so it's really just to get a feel for what kinds of things we're developing. The second part of Module 2 talks a little bit more about Creative Commons and open education. And that's the part that I was a lot more focused on. It's an area of interest for me. So we talk about what is Creative Commons, how those licenses work, and why that's important for the kinds of work that we do, and that we're not locking all of these resources up. We talk about OER Commons a little bit and the open author, which is where a lot of our final projects will be evaluated and how they'll be delivered at the end of the course. And some pieces of, well, if I've decided that my project will be a lesson that already exists, or I found one that already exists and is an OER, maybe I can make it better, or maybe I can shape it more around the CCRS. And so we talk in the end of Module 2 a little bit about how to find OER, to see if you need to develop from the ground up, so to speak, or if you're going to adapt something, and what criteria are around those adaptations.
And JR, I don't know if you even saw this, but when I put the repositories, JR's done a nice job of rounding up some of the main OER repositories where you could find resources. I actually included in there a Google form. So if you are, we have a lot of librarians, shout out to the librarians that are joining us. If there are repositories that you're aware of that you'd like to share with us, there is a place within Module 2 where you can fill out a little form. And then we also have a Diigo social bookmarking site. And all of that you can find within Module 0 where the links to that. And there's also a discussion forum that says resources. So I think a real fun part of what we're going to be able to do with this great group of 1,000+ people that we have is this ability to share. And it's just going to be a matter of, it's going to be a fire hose of information, and so trying to make it somewhat streamlined so people can find things. But JR, I don't know if you want to maybe also just kind of end with talk a little bit about OER Commons as far as that being kind of the home base where we're going to be using to develop our resources, and then also maybe some ideas where they can find resources to potentially dovetail off of.
Yeah, of course. OER Commons is a central repository of different educational objects, and they have a whole way of structuring and filtering those and tagging anything that's built in it. A lot of OER repositories way back when were really places where we could link out to other websites or other resources, or sometimes upload different documents. And what I've noticed with OER Commons, which is a bit different than I've seen with other repositories, is they have a tool called Open Author. So you can actually author your educational resources right in their system and go through all of the tagging, and that they also have an evaluation piece to it. You know, one of the big criticisms of OER or concerns about OER was, how do I know if it's any good? And so OER Commons actually uses what are called the Achieve rubrics. We talk about that a little bit in Module 2. for evaluation. There are 6 rubrics in total, and so what I've provided instead as an exercise in Module 2 is a condensed version of the Achieve rubrics, which is all licensed under CC. And so it'll give you a bit of a taste for how we might evaluate OER. One of the questions that just popped up in the Twitter feed on my sidebar there is from Martin. Hello, Martin. Are we teaching designing to the test GED?
Yeah.
So,
That's... You know what? We how many conversations about this have we had? It hurts, but unfortunately, and I don't know the context in 140 characters. Can you tell if he's saying, rats? Why are we doing that, or is that just a general
I think
observation?
I think when we talk about the CCRS, maybe we just overlooked that that this is for GED preparation. And these are materials that will help our learners. Yeah,
it is. So that's a great piece of context to add. So the GED test was changed in 2014 to align with the CCRS standards, the College and Career Readiness Standards, which were adopted in 2013, to the tail end of 13. And so because of that, adult educators were left with resources that didn't align with the new GED test. And so that's really where the biggest need came from. And that's why when we first polled our subject matter experts as far as what types of resources would you like, they said, well, bottom line, it has to align to the CCRS. But then kind of taking that to the next level, which kind of gets to kind of a part B to the Twitter question, is yes, kind of like it or not, we're helping people prepare for a test. And it takes a little while to get past that, because as educators, we kind of like to say that we're not here to help people pass tests, but in this case, it really is very important. It's really a major achievement and a goal for a lot of folks is to pass the GED or whatever. There are different versions, different high school equivalency pathways that they could take. But bottom line is those pathways are tied to this College and Career Readiness Standards, and so that's why we've kind of put all our eggs in that basket. That's why we're asking you to design your lessons around that. Any other questions coming in, JR? That's it? Okay. Well, I also want to talk a little bit about, I'm trying my best to read everybody's introduction because it's really so exciting for me to welcome everybody to the class. So it's really great that people take time out of their busy lives to help us and to learn with us. And so I've seen many people say, I'm nervous about this experience. How in the world can you learn in a class with over 1,000 people? And I keep telling in all my comments, just sip from the fire hose. Just take little sips when you're able. And you may find it more comfortable to try to connect in smaller spaces. And so we've gone ahead and set up a few places where that you may feel more comfortable having smaller sidebar conversations. We have a LinkedIn group that at this point has about 160 people in it, still fairly large, but I know a lot of folks have mentioned within their introductions that they're either starting their careers or maybe career changers and are out to take this experience trying to get to know new people, and that would be a great opportunity to polish up your profile on LinkedIn and join the LinkedIn group. And all of these links, I'll put them in the show notes, but they are in Module 0 for where you can find these communities, separate communities. We also have a Facebook group, which is also at about 140 people right now. So if you're on Facebook a lot during the day and you want to hop over and check things out on that group, that may be something of interest. We also have a Google Plus group. Again, about 160 people have so far joined that. And then, as JR has mentioned already, we are trying to get some interest going on Twitter. This is kind of a quiet Twitter group. I thought maybe with 1,000 people we'd have more people that were interested in Twitter. But we're, again, using that hashtag OpenABE to try to aggregate all of the conversations on Twitter. And then, as I mentioned briefly, there is that DIGO group. If you're into social bookmarking, that's a really nice platform to be able to do that. And that's much smaller. I think we only have about 20 or 25 people that have signed up for that. And then we're about at 20 minutes. I don't want to sit and ramble too much because, as we've said, we haven't gotten too far into the class to have a lot of questions, but a few things have come up. And maybe, John, you could help me answer the question about design models. We received a question right out of the box. We hadn't talked about ADDIE, and it's kind of hard to have an instructional design class without ADDIE. And for those that aren't in the instructional design field, it's basically an acronym that describes what tends to be the primary processes that happen in instructional design. So it's the analysis, the design, the delivery, the implementation, and the evaluation. And so we have kind of pivoted a little bit. We certainly have not disregarded any of those important steps, but we're approaching it in a little bit different way, and we're using a basic design process that is applicable to all kinds of disciplines. So it could be architecture, it could be product design, maybe whatever you're designing. And it comes from the Delft Design Guide, so it's Delft University. And so if you go under the Ask a Subject Matter Expert, there's a little bit of a explanation for how we came to follow that process for our design process in this class. And there's also a link to the book as well as an open course from Delft University if you're interested in learning more about their design philosophy. And I don't know, John, if you had any more thoughts on that piece of it.
No, it's, that philosophy is very similar to an ADDIE philosophy. I mean, it's just a matter of the terms they use. But what we wanted to make sure that everyone really took from this design process is that being very iterative. And unfortunately, in instructional design, our history is that our models often become very linear, and they have this feeling that once you do one step, you don't ever go back to it. Well, we all know as designers that we're always going back to it. So, so those of you that are used to the ADDIE, that approach still works. But what we want to reinforce through your journey is the fact that we really want you to have this iterative approach. And even though you're going to do Module 1, Module 2, Module 3, Module 4, every module was designed with kind of looking forward and looking back. So when you get into Module 2, Module 1 is going to be pulled into it, and then, as JR was describing, and then he's going to start to give you a little taste of what's going to happen in Module 3, so you're starting to go that way. And so we have this iterative approach the whole time, and that's really where taking design principles from architecture and graphic design and engineering really comes into play, because those designers are so used to designing in this iterative process. And as instructional designers, we've always done that, but we've not always shown that we do that. So that's kind of where we came up with the approach for this whole design.
Yeah, and then there's also a real obvious hole in what we're doing as related to ADDIE. As the I in ADDIE stands for implementation. And we, given the constraints of a 12-week course and we don't have a pool of learners, we aren't actually implementing these to be able to do an evaluation of the implementation. So our evaluation, and JR mentioned, it's going to be using these Achieve rubrics within OER Commons. It will be a peer review, it will be a self-evaluation, and it will also be then a subject matter expert looking at your design as well. So that's kind of another reason that we don't have the I. We're not doing the implementation phase. And then I'm just going to quickly run through some things. I'd love to highlight absolutely everybody had a great profile, and most people were putting portfolios and cool things they're doing. But if you're into blogging, Christian Lee is journaling his experience in this class. So I'm really excited about that. Maybe a little nervous. I hope he ends up having a good experience, because we'll be broadcasting it to the world. But again, I'll put that in the show notes. He's talked about it on Twitter a little bit, and he posts every time he has a new blog post. He's been putting it up on Twitter, so that's kind of fun to watch. And then a really cool, very, kind of got me a little choked up before we started. I read Janet Lee has quite a project she did with a gentleman by the name of Arnie Stewart. He learned to read as an adult, and I barely got through it before it was posted later this afternoon, and I really didn't get through all of it. But she basically has created a documentary of his journey, and she traveled with him as he spread this message of literacy. And it's a really very well done website and a really moving story for all of us that are interested in this. Obviously, we're all here. We're interested in this topic of literacy, and especially for adults. And so the website where she posted this, it's the Arnie movie. So it's THE Arnie ARNIE movie.com. And again, I'll put that in the show notes when we're done. And then I think I'm about done, but I just wanted to mention a couple other things that may be coming up. Kay is here, and I feel bad she can't get her audio working, but she's waving at us. She is very interested, as well as Camille, on the global aspect of our designs, and so we may be hitting you up as things progress. She may want to see if some of you are interested in speaking with her, either in an interview or some type of survey. Research that she may conduct with Camille on understanding the cultural differences and similarities, given we are such a global audience of designers, and how that may come into play. So I'll speak for you, Kay. Hopefully, I'm saying what what she wants to work on. A couple other things. I really want to mention the fact that there are no prerequisites in this course, which makes it difficult for us as designers to know where to set that bar. So we have some extremely experienced designers, and we have some who are mentioning they're basically novices, just coming in. This is their first opportunity. So if you feel, we put together our design guide as JR mentioned, and that's really what we'd like in general for each lesson to look like. So we have a first section that has a lesson description, and that's there primarily so people can find your resource once it's put out in the world. So there'll be keywords and audience descriptions and things like that. That's pretty standard stuff we'd like everybody to make sure they're including with their lesson, again, with the idea that people can find it once it's out on the internet. The second piece is the lesson itself, and I just really want to say there's a lot of freedom in that. Even though it looks like we have a fairly prescriptive layout of how we like things to flow. If you're interested in games, I've seen a lot of people say they're interested in some type of game-based learning. This is your time to try. So please do not feel at all constrained by that design guide. It's always a kind of catch-22 as far as, well, we want to give you guidance, but at the same time we don't want to pen you in. So if you need the guidance and you want to follow it pretty much as it's laid out, more power to you if you're more interested in trying new things. Now, saying that, there is a slight caveat. We do want to make sure that your resources that you create are accessible to everybody once it is out on the internet. So if you do design on some type of platform outside of, and you can do that easily if you design outside of OpenAuthor and then provide a link to it if it's stored elsewhere on the internet. But please don't develop in any type of platform where it's proprietary, where you need to pay to access the resource, or there might be some real difficult kind of paywall, or paywall would be a problem, and then also even just weird logins and things that may be difficult for people to access. So we can almost stretch it too far to a point that it's, we have to also, as John talked about the context, think about our learners may not have great internet access where they're learning. And so even though we can create a lot of things with cool bells and whistles, kind of thinking back to, as John saying, this idea of always going back to where our learners are at, they may not be able to use your cool new resource that you've developed. So I just wanted to make that point tonight that there's a big continuum as far as development, and I'm kind of putting it on the designers to make sure they're cognizant that people have to be able to use it once you're done. And that's about it. Did you guys have anything else that you wanted to mention? JR, I think you're taking the reins on the March 10th as far as being the host of the next webinar that we're having, but anything else you guys wanted to mention?
I think one thing I'd like to mention is one thing that will make this MOOC maybe a little bit different than what you may have experienced in other MOOCs if you've taken other MOOCs is not only do we have the facilitation team to try and respond on the discussion boards, but in Module 0, where we have listed things like DGO or the Open ABE Twitter hashtag, is that those tools aren't just used for you to contact us, but also contact each other. And so there are these small bits that are loosely joined. So maybe you're interested in a specific age group and topic in mathematics, there might be, out of 1,000 people, there's a pretty strong probability that there's somebody else at least interested in math, but maybe in the exact same standard that you're going to address. And so being able to connect with other people using these tools might make the experience just that much better, or you'll have somebody to bounce some ideas off of and build some collegiality through this that might last well beyond the MOOC.
Yeah. And I think that was our first night when we had our design meeting. I said, we're all strangers now, but I think we'll feel like colleagues by December. And I certainly feel that way, and I think I hope everybody felt the same way that was on the design team, and we really hope the same for you. So we're starting out as 1,000 strangers, and as JR said, just find your people and find your kindred spirits and take advantage of all the tools that the internet has available to us to try to partner up and make new colleagues. So, and I thank everybody so much as we're signing off. And guys, I'm one last chance. Going once, going twice. Anything else you'd like to say?
No other questions from Twitter either, so
no more Twitters. Everybody's quiet tonight. All right, so we had about 60 viewers, so I guess that pushes us past the Zoom limit, so I guess we'll be back here on March 10th. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, I hear you!
You heard me. Wow.
That was like...
Well, that's cool.
So did I put in your plug for your... I hope I...